What's going on, farmers? Hope everybody had an awesome Thanksgiving Day. Hope you could spend it with friends, family, with food, drink, and maybe you came out with some new family stories from that crazy aunt or uncle we all seem to have. Also, I think something I think we're all grateful for is the day or two off of work that we get and the extended weekend. So I hope you took advantage of that and spent some time in the garage working on the car. Also gives you some time to take advantage of those awesome Black Friday sales that everybody seemed to have. I know I did, and can't wait for the packages to arrive. With all that, I'd like to just give a quick share my appreciation and gratitude to have all the subscribers and the watchers and commenters. I very much appreciate that, guys, and it does help continue to motivate me to keep doing these videos. So I'm glad there's people out there that appreciate it and can learn from it. I understand I'm not the most entertaining guy in the YouTube sphere, so very much appreciate it. But to get down to what we're going to talk about today. So you might have noticed in the title and thought to yourself, wait, I thought he installed Team Z torque box replacements. Well, not the case. And today we're going to go through the who, what, why, when, and how of all this, and go over installing these Merillat Racing torque box replacements. So take a seat, grab a beverage, maybe some leftovers, and check it out. All right, everybody, just a little upfront warning, this video might go slightly longer than most, but the first few minutes I'll be talking mainly about the timeline, how, why, when, all that stuff of when I switched from using the Team Z to the Merillat Racing torque boxes. So if you want to skip ahead a few minutes, feel free. Then once I get through that, I'll get into installing the Merillat's. So from the last video, you guys saw that I was getting a replacement for the driver's side, which wasn't fitting correctly. And so I set the old one out on the 16th of November, and I received my Team Z received it on the 18th, that Monday. Then I had received the replacement on the 20th. The first thing I did when I pulled it out of the box was take a look at the issue I was having, which was, if you look, you can see that that far plate is not parallel with the near plate, and that was causing the way it sat up in there, and it didn't fit right. The passenger side fit perfect. It was nice and tight up against the floor, but I couldn't get the driver's side to work out. So on the, what day would it have been? The 21st, actually the 20th, I did try and put it up just in case, but it still did not, I was having the same issues. So on the 21st, I sent an email back to him saying, hey, still having the same issue, blah blah, not sure what to really do now, and I mean, I can't install it because both sides don't match up. And so that was a late email, so I didn't expect anything that night, but I kind of was expecting something back on the Friday, the 22nd. I didn't get anything in the morning, so I gave him a call in the afternoon, and the tech there said he was going to talk to Dave about it, but Dave wasn't in, so he wasn't going to reply until he talked to Dave, and him and Dave would talk on the 25th. Well, being that was, that was the Monday of the holiday week this past week, and I didn't want to go over the weekend and also possibly through the holiday without having this solved and nothing installed. So on Friday, the 22nd, after I got off the phone with Team Z, I called up Marty at Merillat Racing. He had a set of torque boxes, and they were on the shelf. And on that weekend of the 23rd and 24th, he thought he was going to be in my area, and he was going to just drop them off near me, and we'd meet up and get them, and then I could install them that weekend. Which is awesome. I mean, I wouldn't, how often do you hear about that stuff? The owner of the company is going to drop off the stuff for you, basically deliver it for you. But it didn't work out that he ended up driving near me. So on Monday, he mailed them out, and I received them on Tuesday, the 26th. So that brings us to now. I still didn't get a reply from Team Z, so I'll probably give them a call next week. But at this point, I guess it doesn't really matter because I have Merillat racing boxes, and I guess if anybody's interested in a set of Team Z's and willing to give it a shot, see if it fits on their car, send me an email. My email's in the or not comments, what's the description box down below. So shoot me an email if you're interested. We'll work out a deal for them. So anyways, just to go through, if you're interested in it, all the pieces are still here. The only thing that's I guess modified is, I did have this tacked on, but I was able to cut it off and not mangle it at all. It's still flat. These pads here are shortened a little bit, about 3/4 of an inch, just because I needed to make it work with my mini tubs. That's on both of them, this one and that one. But as you can see, all the other pads are factory or original to their design. Comes with the hardware and everything, all the stencil piece, all that stuff. So it's a complete kit. Shoot me an email, work something out, or DM me in Instagram, something like that. But now we'll just go through the Marty's torque boxes. So basically, this is Marty's lower control arm, but I just want to show you something on it. But it doesn't come with. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with the torque boxes, but so what you get is your torque box, your hardware and spacers, and the reinforcement ring for the inside of the subframe. I just have one out here because I have one currently tacked in. And this install is pretty simple. I think I don't know if the Team Z stuff would have been, if it would have fit well, then I think it just would have been as simple. But so it's going smoother of an install. We'll get into it. If you're interested, I guess I can go through some differences since they're here. You got more adjustment holes. There's 9 holes. The Team Z's got 4. It is heavier, so if you're crazy about weight, I don't know, you have to look into it, but they are substantial. The lower control arm mount is wider. Of course, these are the race version, so they're narrow. So you would need Heim joints on your lower control arms in order to use these. Let's see. The spacers, fit well. here's the spacers in the heim joint, and you can see they're the kind that actually extend the rotational abilities of the heim joint. So they're top quality units, and the spacers are sized to work with Marty's lower control arms, but it's not to say you can't use somebody else's. You just need to give him some information so he can make the spacers work for you. But his lower control arms come with the ball for a 3/4 hole on the torque box side. So that's what he sets his spacers up for. Other than that, it's quite simple. First step is, of course, make sure your car is sitting level side to side. We'll go turn this on and check. So you can see I'm at 180, nice and level. So with your old torque boxes removed, you're going to want to actually prepare and paint, or whatever you want to do, the floor part and whatever on the bulkhead. Of course, you know, I was installing the Team Z stuff, so a lot of what I have prepared for that install, actually we won't even touch with Marty's torque boxes. So the Merillat Racing torque boxes do not contact the floor or the bulkhead. So if you need to do seam sealer or something like or paint or anything like that, or weld, you need to make sure that that's all done before you install these torque boxes. The next thing to do would be these factory holes. What I ended up finding out with working on the placement and everything of mine was that these factory holes aren't necessarily aligned side to side, so you can't use these as a reference. I found that the passenger side hole was actually 1/4 inch further back towards the rear of the car than the driver's side. So I had to take both torque boxes and actually move them slightly towards the back, so that way I was covering this hole, and also, I mean, obviously the driver's side hole I was already covering, but this one I was exposed to about 1/4 inch, and so I had to actually move them forward and try and split it the difference slightly. So you got to kind of work with that, but I would definitely measure these to make sure you know how far off they are, and kind of gives you an idea of where you need to place your torque box. The next step would be to grab your torque boxes. So we'll grab ours, and the one thing I did forget to mention, Marty puts holes, 1.5 holes right there, and what you can actually do is put some tubing in there. I think this is mainly for cars that are like 25 dot something, you know, 25.5, 25.3, 25.2, whatever those dots are that are way faster than what I plan on going. But I think it'd be like for double frame rail type stuff. But you could probably make it work if you really wanted to. But they're it's for 1.5 inch tubing, and you could actually get quite complex with that. So we won't deal with that. Unfortunately, it doesn't go. It's not at a plane which would meet up with your kicker, so you can't just drill a hole through your bulkhead. And you could if you could put some bends and stuff in it, but I don't see it as really being a benefit for this build. Something faster would be really nice to have, but Anyways, so we'll move on. So basically you just work on getting the fitment correct for your install. And basically you're just going to work on getting the fitment right. Now mine are a bit snug because I have that 16 gauge plate on the rocker side where I was going to weld the Team Z stuff too, and to fill up a little bit of room that was there with that. But with Marty's, mine are actually way snug because of that 16 gauge. So I would not recommend putting 16 gauge on your rocker if you're going to use Marty's torque boxes. Plus his cover that hole that's there, so you're not trying to weld right where that hole is, basically like the Team Z stuff. Now, so I did have to, in order to get mine to fit because of my mini tubs, I had to notch this back and trim it because originally it came all the way out and down, and it was maybe inch longer, yeah, probably about an inch. So I trimmed that in order to fit tighter up against here, and then I had to also grind this back edge down slightly in order to fit up against the subframe, because mine's of course snugger. So I got them fitting good, and I'll get it in place and show you what is next. Okay, so I have it in place, and where it is right now is where when I first installed it, and you can see that there's a gap where that hole is. Let's see if I can get so you can see that the hole was originally right where the edge is on the torque box replacement. And this is what, like I was telling you, I had the passenger side and the driver side aligned dead on. But the driver side covered that hole, whereas the passenger side looked like it does when I showed you. So what I had to do was move them both more towards the rear of the car to cover that hole. So I'll get it in the correct position, and I can show you then. And that's why I recommend to check your holes to begin with, to make sure that you know how far off they are compared to each other. Okay, I got the passenger side one in the correct position. And you can see now I am completely covering the factory hole. And I got this edge up near, you can't see, have the edge up near the edge of the rocker. But as you can see, like I was mentioning before, there's actually no contact between the floor and the torque box. So that's why you need to have everything prepared, so that way when you go to install these, you're not spending more time getting everything prepared, like I will be. Not a big deal, but you know, at least forewarning you guys so you don't run into the same thing. So now there's a couple ways, once you have them in place, there's a couple ways that you can use to make sure they're aligned. So one of the ways, which I doubt will work for a lot of you guys, but might work for some of you, it all depends. You gotta assess your situation first, but you can see I have these strings with some weights on them at both sides. And what I did is just measured, you know, amount from the frame rail over, hung it, the same here on this, on the bar that I've installed. And of course, some of you guys still have your floor, and you know, it all depends, like I said, on your situation. But that's one way that I was using to make sure that these things are aligned. And with those strings there, I put one of the bolts through, and then I would take a tape measure from the bolt and measure to the string and make sure both sides are the same. And I also measured from an angular measurement, diagonal, to make sure that the diagonals were the same, because that means everything's square. So the other way, which is more like I think most everybody will use. So on your front subframe, there's these holes that are in it, and I'm not for certain. Of course, these are your transmission mount holes. Not for certain, but I think these are for jig placement when they go to weld these things all up. Or it might, I don't know if those are just for shipping, but I don't, I didn't use these ones. I ended up using these little holes right here. You know, I checked a bunch of measurements to make sure that they were the same. And they ended up being, you know, same point from front to back. So I felt comfortable using those as my reference point. But then I just took a tape measure, you know, from any, you really use any edge, but I used this front edge here, it's on the bottom. Put my tape measure there, measured back to here, and made sure both sides were the same. And like I showed you before, you could also do diagonals to make sure everything's square. And that's how I made sure everything was aligned. Would like to mention, before you do any kind of checking, one thing I would do is, you know, all of Marty's plates are laser cut, and there can be, sometimes you laser cut, there can be a slight edge on it, or you know, it can be real, it might be like one little point or something from where it started the laser cut, whatever the case. I did have to go through and clean up these holes a little bit. So I just, you know, if I couldn't put the bolt through, I just grabbed a 1/2 inch drill bit. Make sure the drill bit is long enough to get to both sides, because you have to go from this side in order to maintain a straight shot. But I didn't go nuts. I just kind of got it through the first hole and got it in position for the second hole, and then just real lightly, I didn't put a lot of pressure on it, you know, kind of high speed but low pressure, and just kind of clean everything up so that the bolts fit through real nice. So I definitely recommend doing that check. And you could also use like I wouldn't use a die grinder. I wouldn't use anything real aggressive. Maybe like a sander roll or something. You could probably use that. But I like the drill bit because they're both aligned. You don't have one that's kind of crooked, the other one's not. You know, this way they're both aligned. And obviously don't go hog wild on it, because and you got to make sure you're straight, because if you get just a little crooked, it'll take a big old gouge out of it. So you got to be careful when you're doing that. Okay, we talked about making sure they're aligned. I'm not going to give any measurements because every car will be slightly different, so you got to figure out which works best for you. Like I said, those factory oval holes were a 1/4 inch out, so yours might be dead on. I don't know. So you gotta know, work it out for you. I'm just giving you the ways to go about it, you know. So once the placement, everything is correct, you know, you're aligned, you can then take, what I did was placed a mark, just use a Sharpie, put a mark on my subframe right where this is. So just because I had the driver's side done, not complete, but I have all the holes and everything cut and finished. I'm going to show you from this side. So as you can see, there's my Sharpie line, and I just measured about a 1/4 inch back, and then took my reinforcement ring and placed the inside edge on that quarter, or that the other line we made. That's a 1/4 inch back. Just place it like that. Got a good idea of where to make my hole, and trace around the inside, and then cut it out. Now I will say, when I cut that out, I actually cut, so if my line is on the inside, I actually cut try to cut about 1/8 of an inch away from that line, so the hole is just slightly bigger, so that way you don't have anything sticking out and something you could cut your fingers on or something like that. Once I had the hole cut, I placed the torque box back up and actually put a bolt through it on the lower setting, put my bolt through, put a nut on it, and actually grabbed a socket and tried to install it. And I didn't have it low enough in that point, so I took and used a die grinder to clean this up and made it so that you can see a little dip there. I made it so that the lowest hole clear, you know, so that the subframe so I had to open it up right there, so that way the nut and the socket and everything cleared, and I knew I was good. So once you have that inside, or I'm sorry, the outside of the subframe hole, once you have that hole cut, then you can go to the inside, and really all I did is kind of eyeballed it with the torque box in place, just kind of eyeballed it and got me an idea, and then just did the same cutting method. I traced out the ring, put I cut the hole, you know, about 1/8 of an inch away from the ring, from the trace mark that I made, and then cleaned up the hole and welded it on. So, well, I just got it tacked on now, but that's all there really is to it. It's really simple. Again, you know, the main things to keep an eye on are the way they fit. So you gotta, if you gotta grind or tweak anything, you can. And then just working it so the placement is correct and they're aligned. Because if you remember, I can't remember which video I said it in, but I said it in a video. If your torque boxes aren't aligned, then it changes your arc length of your control arms. Well, that, like I said before, can actually, depending on where it goes, it's, if you know about bump steer, it's kind of similar. Like the way it moves, it might be the same length here, but once you're into a different point of suspension where it's down here, it could be different. It could be longer or shorter, and it could actually steer the car. So it's something, it's a critical point you need to pay attention to, and you can use those methods I showed you. It's not hard to do, and other than that, it's really all there is to it. Once you have all your holes cut and your positions known and everything's good from there, it's just weld them in. So as far as welding them in goes, we're on the front side of the torque box here. All you need to do is weld to your rocker and then to the subframe, and you can weld here, and of course, you know, all around here, and then whatever, basically whatever touches the rocker and the subframe. Now you don't, I guess if you had your floor out, you could weld the top part, but that's gonna add minimal to it. With those points welded up, you're more than good. And just in case you want to see the inner hole, so it looks like nice and big, you can fit your hand in there. It's not fingers only, it's your whole hand, you can get the nut on. So top quality stuff. So there you have it. That's how you install the Merillat Racing torque box replacements. You know, he was one of the guys that had a holiday special. Go if you want some of these torque boxes for yourself, go to Facebook and look up Merillat Racing, Merillat Racing, and it should pop up his page, and you can get contact with him there and get your pricing and all that good stuff. So he has torque boxes, upper and lower control arms, he does rear ends. So now at this point my whole rear end is complete Merillat Racing parts. So show it off again. It's my rear end. Friggin' thing is insane. Super high quality work. And if you didn't see before, these are Marty's upper control arms. These things are super, like, I don't know how you can destroy these things other than wrecking the car, but way beefier than anything else I've seen on the market. Obviously his lower control arms, I mean, everybody's are pretty similar. Oop. All right, everybody, I think that's about all I can say as far as the installation. You got questions or comments, put them down below. I hope this helps. Hope this gives you an idea of what to look forward to and how to go about it. And that's about all I got to say. I can't really speak to it anymore. And I'm kind of getting sick of talking, so I'd much rather be working. So I'm gonna go do that. But you guys take it easy, get in the garage, turn that dream into a goal, and crush it. See ya.